How long have you worked there?
About 3-4 months now.
Oh, fun. My friend used to work there, Kayan.
Kayan.
Yeah, she's been gone for a wee while now. That's
Been
fun.
gone?
Yeah, like gone out of.
Oh, right,
bonds.
okay.
Not like dead.
she's departed.
No, she used to work there, and yeah.
There you go.
Very good.
There you go. The more you know.
I was just looking over your quick questions there. Just to let you know, Lauren, this is not like a big official scary interview. This is just a chat that happened to be recorded.
Okay.
Do you mind just speaking?
Just don't say anything
so we get
racist
the
and we'll be okay.
Volume dialed in, yeah.
Yes, I will speak like a normal person. La
Okay.
la la la. Is that good?
That's good. That's
Well,
good.
that's what normal people do. La 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 la.
Also, I brought some cookies.
Woo! I mean, that was good. I wasn't going to let you in if you didn't bring anything.
Just you know, whenever it's spring Northern Irish, you can't really go to someone's house without
No,
bringing
you can't.
something.
You have
Yeah.
to bring.
You're doing something,
Yeah, exactly.
you know.
Josh didn't bring anything.
That's really shocking.
Okay, so we'll get started, yeah. So this is Lauren Graham,
Hello.
correct? Yes.
That's me.
I met her on the streets of Belfast.
That's exactly how you met. Yes.
Great start.
That sounds so weird.
Yeah, so she was promoting a group Christian organisation called Agapé, which means love, I think. Which love does that mean?
Sacrificial, I believe, like self-sacrificial or
Sacrificial
unconditional.
love.
So
Do you verify this, Ben?
Yes, I do, because I'm an expert in the four loves. Yes, so charity, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, so just give us a wee bit of explanation. What is Agapé? What is it?
So Agapé is I don't know if you've ever heard of Campus Crusade for Christ International, but it's like a big global mission organisation. It's actually the biggest in the world. It's in more countries than McDonald's, fun fact.
Right.
So Agape UK are the like UK branch of that, and there's a bunch of different ministries. I'm involved in student ministry, but there's family life ministry, global aid, lots of different stuff. But my role is as an intern with the student team in Belfast, just going onto campus and sharing what we believe about Jesus. We kind of have three like belief statements. So the first one is we believe that every student has the right to make up their own mind about Jesus. The second one is we believe that there's a lot of misinformation about Jesus out there, and we want to provide what the Bible has to say about him. And then the third is we believe that God loves everyone and wants to develop a relationship with them, and we want to basically just like provide a space for students to do that.
Yeah.
Not by themselves, for themselves, alongside other people. So it's cool. We've got like a good group going at the minute. We have an event called Agapé Thursdays, which means on a Thursday we meet and have an open Bible discussion, just like talk through a passage in the Bible together. Christians and non-Christians both come to that, and it's a really good like opportunity to discuss, and there's lots of opportunity for like gospel conversations and stuff. And then we're actually having our first soul food event on Monday. So you guys are both welcome to that. It's a Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah.
And it's free. So calling all students free meal Monday the 22nd.
What time is it?
It's at 6:30. So you can register through, there's a wee link on the Agapé Students BFS Instagram.
Lovely.
But yeah, I love it.
I'll be sure to give that a wee...
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
occupied. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I have like a part in my friend's doing film studies, and I have like
Oh, fun.
I have a part in it, so I have to.
Oh, I've been there. I've been in an MIA short film too, actually.
There you go.
What part are you playing?
Huh?
What part are you playing?
The star, Josh. Obviously. No.
Wait, is it a nativity?
No.
Oh.
Oh. Oh. No. No. It's just my friend Alex has asked me to go on, and I got a wee part in it, and I want to help him out. So lovely. How long have you been doing this thing for?
So I have been an intern since September. Well, over the summer I raised my means to live.
So that you were trialed and if you did enough, then you got in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
And then I started in September, but I've been involved with Agapé since my first year of uni, second semester. This girl called April Sterling Mills approached me on campus. Well, there's actually 2 girls, but they did like a survey with me, kind of like I did with you. And at first I thought they were Mormons because I think it's quite. Uh-oh. I was like, do I have time for this today? But as the questions went on, I was like, these feel like right, like they feel like quite biblical. And then
You're like, am I secretly a Mormon?
yeah, like what? I'm
I don't think
confused.
Mormons have females. Mission word.
Because I feel like it's quite rare to see like a Christian come up to you it's just randomly and be like, can I ask you all these questions? They're more like, here's a flyer. They're like one extreme and the other, like turn or burn, or they give you like a wee flyer and then they go on. But she was really cool, and then we ended up hanging out a few more times after that, and eventually she started like discipling me or mentoring me, and she did that for like.
Were you a Christian at this point?
I was a Christian, so that was cool because I was sitting with a girl who wasn't a Christian. So whenever I realized they were Christians, I was like, oh, I'm a Christian too. So like the conversation kind of flowed a bit better, and we talked for ages. But then she ended up discipling me, and I just stayed involved with Agapé then through my time at uni, and I loved it. I love that they're very mission minded. It's like they want to create a space for like gospel conversations with non-Christians rather than like, I think it's great to create a space for Christians to like meet and gather, but I think it's so important that we are mission focused when we do that.
Was there opportunity to travel abroad then?
Yeah, so there would have been, but then this funny little pandemic happened.
I haven't heard about that.
What's that about?
I don't know if you've heard of COVID-19.
No, doesn't ring a bell.
Side note, I had COVID 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I don't have it anymore. The panic in your eyes. And you're like, get out of my house. It was awful, and I still can't smell anything, but that was a side note. But yeah, the pandemic happened, and I was meant to go to either Russia or Germany.
Yo, Russia.
Russia would have been so cool, but
would have been cool.
I ended up not being able to go because of the pandemic. But I am doing the global.
Were you planning to go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I couldn't because it was all cancelled. But there's a global, so they have like opportunities for global missions every year. So this year I'm on the project that's called Water's Edge. It's going to the Middle East. So
there you go.
An undisclosed town in the Middle East. So that's gonna be fun. Kind of scary.
So how's that going to work out? Like, what are you planning to?
So there's like a university campus that we'll be going on to, and basically just doing what we're doing in Belfast over there.
So it's not just you from the streets of Belfast to the streets of the Middle East.
Yeah. No, it's like very away from any kind of conflict and safe and
Take what you can get.
Yeah. So we'll be just like chatting to university students and like again just opening conversation about faith and yeah.
Awesome. Sounds class. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
sounds like a cup of tea.
So you just, from your experience from being in uni, you were with Agapé going to these week groups, and then you just one thing led to another.
Yeah. So as soon as I graduated uni, I was like, what do I do? So I applied for PGCE because I did English. So like the only option really is like teaching, or if you're like really ambitious, then you can maybe like go into editing or something like that. But I just was not keen for that. So I applied for PGCE, but something just didn't feel right. I felt like God was like calling me to take time to like invest in missions, but like local mission. Yeah. And that's what I like about the internship is like, yes, you're doing mission, but like there's a whole focus just with Agapé in general on like personal development and growth. So my friend Lauren, who works for Agapé, is now my boss, she reached out to me. She goes to my church, and she reached out to me. She was like, hey, you should apply for this internship. And this was on like the Friday. She was like, but the deadline's on Monday, so apply right now.
Yeah.
So I applied and I got it.
There you are.
And haven't looked back since.
What did you study in uni?
English with creative writing.
Oh! I did that for a month in Oxford.
Did you?
Yeah, but I dropped out.
Oh, why?
Every time he says Oxford, he gets to say this. What?
Because I think there was a
you went to the B-Tech version of Oxford?
No, I didn't. Yes, I did. Went to Oxford Brooks. I hate it when I ever say I go to Oxford and then Josh just
You've been out.
BTEC. But no, I went to uni for a month in
Make
Oxford.
sure you don't go.
Shut up!
too far
I'm
off
speaking.
track.
And then, and then I studied English literature and creative writing because I write all the time. I love it. I love writing all the time. It's very, very good for
I love
the
writing.
soul. I plan to be the next C.S. Lewis. Like I will be the next C.S. Lewis.
Whoa, you heard it here first.
Yeah. So there you go. What I was leading on from that was, how did you feel your uni life was corresponding with your Christian life, with your Agapé life?
Was that a 3-year course? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's well done for surviving.
Well, the thing in uni.
Was that Queen's? Yeah.
Yeah. The thing in uni was, for me, that I came from like a very sheltered Christian home, which isn't a bad thing. It was great. I say very sheltered. It was just like, standard Presbyterian upbringing.
Yeah. You mean you weren't exposed to other
Yeah.
like cultures and stuff?
Yeah.
Right.
Like other. It's just like I'm from Kilkeel,
Okay.
It's tiny.
Yeah.
So whenever I went to uni, I was like, whoa. There's so many things that like I didn't know that people did, like alcohol and drugs. I've never done drugs, Mom, I promise. But I think just like being exposed to that all of a sudden, like I just felt there was this like temptation to like just indulge completely in that lifestyle. But because I was being mentored by this girl, April, I felt like I had that accountability my whole way through uni, and I was so thankful for that, because every time I would like hang out with her, if I'd messed up or if I had felt like, oh, I really just like I feel like giving up, like I want to like live this worldly life, I felt like she was always there to like point me back to Jesus.
Was she in your year? Was she?
No, so she worked for Agapé, and she's like 28. I think so, a good bit older than me.
Same age as Josh.
But like, are you? No, you're not.
I did my first year.
Yeah, I was like, surely not.
Everyone thinks I'm in my 20s.
Yeah, but he's not. He's a wee boy.
Yeah.
Wee baby.
Oh my days. So, yeah, so she was like older than me, but like not so much older than me that I was like,
That it was weird.
it's weird. Yeah,
no,
like,
I understand.
I'm making friends with all the people who are in their last year at uni. It's so tragic.
fair.
It's like, yeah, but like next year I'm gonna have no friends.
It's because you're so spirit-minded and existential and talking about all these deep things, and then people who have just started uni are like, I want to have fun, man.
What do you study again, Josh?
Computer science.
Yes, I thought it was something like that I would hate.
Same. I can't with computers.
What did you do after Oxford?
I went straight to work. I love working.
Yeah.
I've had about 4 or 5 jobs since that. I worked in my old school. They offered me a job. After that, I worked in a sales company, and then after that, I'm working. And then I did a bit of administration work for my father in his small business, one of his small businesses, and then that was before the sales one. And then now I work in that wee coffee shop full time, and I love it. It's very, very good because I'm very people orientated and very.
And they're a Christian coffee shop, right?
A wee Christian coffee shop. Oh, aye. Lots of opportunity to talk and preach and just really indulge in what it means to be a Christian in a public sphere. So it's really, really, really good. What church do you go to?
I go to Village Church in Belfast, the south one.
I think I've been there before.
Yeah, so the east, there's Village East, which was like originally planted from this church in America, and then whenever they became like big enough, they planted a church in South Belfast. So I go to that. It's non-denominational, but like technically the theology's I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but technically the theology's pretty much Baptist, but like they're not Baptist. I don't really get it.
So you see the thing what you just said. Oh, I don't think I'm allowed to say this in this podcast. You just say whatever you want.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it's just
Okay.
like there are probably there are a million things Josh and I have said that with 9 or 8 or 10 people would be like, can't say that. Can't say that.
Sorry, what's the name of the church?
Village South.
Village South exposed.
Exposed. That's going to be the title of the podcast.
They're actually Baptist.
The truth about Village South.
We're gonna have a wee minute-long clip. Just
We're actually Christian cancel culture. That's what.
Yeah. No, they're great. I love my church. I actually just became a member like not that long ago, and I was baptized there and stuff. So
lovely, lovely, lovely.
it's the best.
Very good.
Very good.
So,
What about you guys? What churches do you go to?
What church do you go to?
I
Josh?
go
I actually
to-
know this.
Brookside Presbyterian in Hoggle. It's one of the 3 Presbyterian churches there, and it's one of the 3, 4, 5, 6, like 6 religious buildings there. It's
Nice.
I think it's the most churched place in Northern Ireland, and I'm pretty sure Northern Ireland is the most churched place in the world.
Wow.
Churches every 5 miles. I go to Glen Abbey.
Oh,
Yes, I love it. Very,
know
very
a
good.
few people there.
I've been to a few churches. I've actually, but settled with Glen Abbey.
Mm-hmm. Did you
Uh,
grow up going to?
Did
you grow up in church?
my story's interesting. I grew up in the RP Reformed Presbyterian circle, so
cool.
very hard in the theology, very hard in the learning. So by the time I was 10, 11, I would know my Bible pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
But I found it a very harsh environment. And a bunch of circumstances happened with my family that we had to leave and go to a different church.
Okay.
Start with Kells Water Presbyterian. Had more falling outs there, and then we had to move to another church, and then we went to Glen Abbey for a wee bit after that, and then we just went from church to church. Then we ended up in Clock Mills.
Is this just your whole family?
Yeah, and then we went up to Clock Mills Reformed Presbyterian, and we stayed there for 2 years because it was lovely. It was like a good kind of RPism, but then it kind of caught up to us that, you know, all of the links and stuff in the circles. We just had to leave, and then we went back to Trinity for a few years, and it just got really dramatic again. And then Trinity was the name of the church, and then I just didn't feel comfortable there with everything that was going on, and then eventually went to Glen Abbey, and then through that entire aspect I lost my faith. I just saw it as all these political games trying to just get the upper hand on people and just not let them think anything else, just to bottleneck people's sort of brains and hearts and to think one way. And I found that because I grew up in quite a very sheltered sort of Christian household, very much do's and don'ts, and I was like, look, I haven't been exposed to anything else, how's this fair? I want to go my own way. And the moment I decided that, it was just everything just got really dark for me. And I just didn't really know what to do, didn't really have a faith. I would say I was a Christian through all the way school. I'd be like, yes, I'm a Christian, and if anybody challenged me on it, I would destroy them with just superior Bible knowledge that I had acquired. But it just wasn't Christian. It was like I was more of a Pharisee than I was a Christian. And I realised this, and it was actually like, it was the worst way I'd been, just telling people that I'm gonna laugh whenever I see them in hell, that I'm going to heaven and I'm better than you and stuff. It's just a horrible way to be.
So you like winning an argument more than
I loved just dominating people in argument, just completely undermining and destroying not only their way of thinking but just them as a person. Like, and I felt so powerful just being like that, just being able to zone in on someone's, just the weak points of their thinking and destroy them. But I didn't bother filling it in with something better, something cleaner, something brighter. I just left them with their own self, and it made me lose friends after friends after friends. I got really, really depressed, and I was just like, this is just a horrible way to be. So I kind of brought myself to the Lord in my tears and was just like, please change me, please change my heart. I don't like who I am, I don't want to be who I am anymore. And he answered. I've had a really spiritual moment in my life. So I go to Romania, Ukraine and Hungary and stuff to go teaching kids English and the Bible and stuff like that, but I haven't done any of that really recently because of it was just my family that did that with some friends. And we set up these like Bible camps, but English holiday Bible camps, sorry. We would just you know tell them stuff, and I would always appear to be like the most Christian or whatever, but deep down I just knew I was a demon. I just knew I was just a sinful person. So I ran out into the forest, and I spent like 3 hours out there just crying to the Lord, and the Lord came to me, and he basically, what it felt like, he just shook me to the core and renewed me and transformed me. And he gave me all of these rewards rather than giving me punishment, rather than giving me things that I was begging for. I was begging to be judged and recycled and renewed and processed and really sort of whipped into shape, like disciplined. Basically, I was looking to be disciplined, but it felt like the Lord was like, you're disciplining yourself enough with the amount of hate that you're giving on yourself and stuff. And slowly, very slowly from that point on, I began to relearn everything that I thought I knew. I only recently read the whole story of David, and it's just completely transforming the different lens that I read it from. The understanding that everything that I used to be was and will be permanently ingrained in the people who I knew of the past. The person who I once was, that's who they're going to remember. And coming to terms with that is really difficult. But then I got to remember that actually I don't really much care what people think of me. I find my identity in the Lord Jesus Christ, because He's my Lord and Savior, and He is the one that allowed me to have the second chance. And the only people who could ever understand that are Christians. And then I want people to understand that you know, there's a lot of people who I've reached now who have said to me, I don't think I've ever known a more holier person than you, or I don't think, you know, I've had the Bible explained to me that way in India. So I went to India to teach English as well, and I was with a bunch of these guys from a Catholic school, St. Malaghy's, and they've all been sort of taught this really theological Catholic side of things. And then they all were in my hotel room, and see that pine cone there, I got that from India. I picked it up in the Himalayas, and it was that same day that I picked that up that these boys were saying how they've never heard the Bible speak the way I was telling them. And that night I was just like, this is the moment. This has been my training. This has been my mission ever since I was born. It's led me to be talking like this to these boys. And that was the moment where I knew that I felt like I would go to heaven, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, I've done enough. Even though it's by faith I've been saved, even though Jesus has done all the punishment for myself, it felt like that was the moment where I had to,
like, you'd finally grasped
that I finally grasped the concept of eternity. And then I just wanted to keep doing that for the rest of my life. So that's brought me basically to where we are now.
That's really cool.
It's mad, like.
Thanks for sharing that.
It's the first time you shared that story in the podcast as well.
Pretty mad, like.
Yeah. What do you... There's a lot more non-denominational churches nowadays, and just
That's what Glen Abbey is, yeah.
modern in the modern world and Western world, and that seems to be where a lot of the younger generations are being pulled towards too, as opposed to the well, I say traditional, but you know, older kind of Presbyterian traditional kind of ways, or maybe even Catholicism and stuff. I was speaking to, who was that? My friend twisted my arm. That's the term. Twisted my, I was like, what part did they twist?
What limb?
They twisted my arm to go to Green Pastures with them. Yeah, I'm
that
sure you're
super mega big
of,
massive church.
I'm sure you're aware of Green Pastures,
I am.
non-denominational church.
What a place, like.
Anyway, but I'll not go into that. There's a Catholic person there. His arm was twisted to go along as well from his. I think it is their first date.
How many more arms will there be, Josh, before the crusade? How many more arms?
It's funny. It was actually a girl from my primary school I met there, and then she was on a first date with this poor Catholic boy.
Their first date was going to church?
Huh?
Wait, that was their first date?
Yeah, go to the Green Pastures. What do you think of that? It was a Tinder
That's
date.
an interesting
Flirt to convert.
It was a Tinder date as well.
Oh,
There's
there's so many layers to this story.
So many layers to us, to be honest.
Anyway, this guy, I was having a chat with him. Just randomly ran into him in one of the plethora of corridors around the new Green Pastures facility.
Mr. Wright's been busy.
Compound. And he was saying, so he was brought up in a Catholic sort of surrounding, and he spoke about it in terms that I hear a lot of young Protestants speak, and I didn't really expect that, because I expected there'd be more. He had different specific concerns, but the general concern was like he doesn't feel like he's a part of it. It's not like he didn't use these exact terms, but he didn't understand why he was doing the traditions he was doing, like the rituals. He didn't understand. He wasn't able to grasp and embody it. He wasn't able to partake, so to speak, in his faith. And it was his first time at this church here, and he was like, all right, I see all these people, they're happy enough partaking in their faith. Everyone's, you know, happy enough making a big sound and doing their thing up on stage, and the preacher going, and he's like, oh, I can see the value in this that isn't present in my tradition. And it's the same sort of, doesn't matter about the green pastures or not, just any sort of non-denominational church. There's a wee bit, a lot of them are pretty much Protestant churches, but as you said, they don't say that.
Yeah.
But I don't know what
theology.
I'm just exploring these ideas. I'm not here telling you this is what I figured out here. But what do you think about that? There's about this shift towards
non-denominational.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
I think for me, one thing that I've always struggled to kind of marry with my faith is like, I know that within the church we're all gonna have different like opinions and like different like on like smaller like obviously the big things like by grace alone, through faith alone, you know, things like that, through Christ alone. Those are important. Those are like foundational. Yeah. But there's gonna be other theological things that like are different, and then that's and that's gonna lead to different denominations. But I just found that like I felt like that's okay, but maybe it's just Northern Irish culture, but where I'm from, it felt like very divided. It was like if you held an event in a Presbyterian church, like Baptists wouldn't come, or do you know what I mean, like that there sort of thing, where it just felt like the church was so divided because of denominations. I'm not saying that that's why I grew up Presbyterian. I'm not saying that's why I like left Presbyterian. There was a whole other different bunch of reasons, but whenever I moved to Belfast, I was like, I want to get stuck into a local church, and I went to a few churches, but when I went to Village, I don't know, it didn't feel like that weird like sense of disunity. Like I didn't feel any of that, like even though a lot of people maybe had different opinions on different things, like our core foundation beliefs were the same, and the teaching at Village is really biblical, and I love the worship and stuff, so it really feels like a community and a family. So I think there's great value in both like denominational and non-denominational churches. It's just like, I think like God's gonna put you in a church where he wants you, and like just strive to love your community.
The question is so not straightforward. It's like so painful to even think about, because there's so many different ways you can look at the situation. Like I can see the immense value in tradition, like to the point where that even my tradition of Presbyterianism doesn't even see, like before, you know, like I see the value and tradition of other people's like Catholicism or Orthodoxy. I can see the value in that, and I also see the value in these random non-denominational churches that pop out of nowhere. You know, they set up shop in some warehouse, and then everyone's like, there you can partake in their faith,
they've
like
got
that.
A huge congregation,
and it's not like what you're saying about not like the doctrine and the theology is might be slightly different, and that could cause divide like that. There's even like, there's good reasons for loads of their doctrinal teachers, say like Presbyterianism, the in writing kind of belief about infant baptism. They say that your child should be baptized from birth.
They're a covenant child. And
the thing is, like if you listen to my minister explain his reasons for it, like, it's beautiful. They're very good reasons, right? And they're good reasons. Like that's not a unhealthy thing to think. And if I listen to a Baptist who would disagree with that, beautiful reasons, right? It's like they're like stuck in the technicalities, and like, you know, they don't grasp each other's language kind of thing. It's hard to say. But then again, non-denominational churches, I mean, it is a denomination. It's just no one else shares a denomination. It's like it's the denomination of Agapé, the denomination of Green Parishes,
Yeah, it's
denomination
just like
of
there's no
whatever
like
church you said you went
label
to.
on there. It's just like a church.
I know.
But I know what you mean.
I know what you mean.
In it not being a denomination, it's kind of become a denomination.
Yes, it's like, it's another. So it's very specific in itself, kind of thing.
Sorry, you gonna finish?
Yeah, I'll say one more thing. The thing that denominations allow you to do, you can have this cross. Like across. Yeah, I can go to another Presbyterian church across the world or across the country, and they would be like, "Oh, this guy's from a Presbyterian upbringing. He's part of our community," kind of thing. So there is that ability to unite. You would agree, and that's same with other denominations. But non-denominations, they don't really have as much of that capability to unite. But then again, as you're saying, from the get-go, you don't feel like there's this uniting spirit in these churches. You continue, Ben?
I was just about to say, so growing up I went to the sort of like boys discovery camp, boys adventure camp and senior camp, and they were all RP, Reformed Presbyterian, and I had a friend on an adventure camp who was Presbyterian who sang. So the main thing that stands Reformed Presbyterians out is they sing psalms from the book of Psalms. And we had this Presbyterian in, and he said, "No, I sing hymns and worship songs." And the amount of stares that this boy got, we were like 13, 14 at the time, and we'd all just look at this man and go, "What do you mean you don't sing psalms?" And he goes, No, we do sing some psalms. We also sing hymns and worship songs." And we're just like, "This is ridiculous."
It's crazy.
And then you had some of the leaders who said
The audacity.
And then you had other leaders who sent in, I think that's from Corinthians, where it's just like, "Rejoice, worship the Lord with psalms, worship songs, and spiritual things," or whatever. I forget the verse at the top of my head, but that is a verse in the Bible. And you know, whenever the leader sent that in, we all just looked at the verse, looked at the guy, and went, "All right, okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
You're different, we're different." But it's the fact that the first reaction that everyone had was looking at this man going, "Who are you? Why are you with this RP? You're a P. You're only a P. There's no Reformed in you." Anyway, and then in my church, the RP one, the Trinity, we went to a course. Basically, it's called like they do these like courses for young adults and before church starts. They're very, very educational in terms of Sunday school, very heavy Sunday school. They have actually exams, and I didn't agree with that. I've never agreed with that. Having like exams to be tested on in the Bible for children, I never did one. Even though I went to Sunday school, even though I learned my catechism, I learned my Psalms, never did an exam on it because, like, I find it very hard that Jesus would want children to be examined. They're meant to be brought up, and they're meant to be taught.
yeah.
But to the point of being examined on it where you can get a grade in Bible knowledge. I don't know. Basically, it felt like, how much are you Christian of you?
Well, I think it's okay as long as you don't put the emphasis that you're not a Christian in this.
Yeah, I mean, like, if I get a D, it's like people look at me going, "Oh well, you better be learning your stuff. You're clearly not as good a Christian as the person who got, or the girl that got an A, who was the minister's daughter." Well, obviously, you know. But
can I comment on the when I partook in the boys' brigades?
I also was in
from a very young age up and throughout the whole thing.
I was in the GB.
Say again?
I was in the GB.
Very good.
Yeah.
And
PB.
they'd have like once a year or so, they'd have the Bible sort of quiz test sort of thing.
I remember
and you do
taking
your,
that.
You do your. It's a wee bit like an exam kind of thing. It'd be questions now.
That was competition.
There wasn't. Yeah, it was just like it was a competition.
Yeah.
You get like from the whole of Northern Ireland, you'd get the shield given to your section.
Yeah.
Be like, "What? You're the Bible winner, guys, or you know your Bible stuff more than anyone else, or at least one of you did."
I came second.
Yeah. But it's kind of just like competition. You know, we all know. Like everyone who showed up to do that exam knew that they were so clueless, and they're like, "Okay, well, let's try my best here, but I'm not expecting anything, right?"
Thankfully, I never had to do. Our GB didn't do like the exam. I know that a lot of GBs did, but ours didn't, and I was so glad because I was like, I enjoyed the Bible study, but I knew I wouldn't have enjoyed it as much as if it felt like school, you know.
Yeah.
I felt like, oh my goodness, I need to actually like go home and learn this
Yes.
for an exam.
You see, that's the difference I find. You've got a kind of school educational aspect, and then you also have a competition for fun kind of aspect. So to contrast the sort of Sunday school exams of my church to when I left that church and joined Presbyterian church, BB, when I joined a BB, because Reformed Presbyterians don't have BBs.
Didn't realise that?
No.
Didn't know that either.
So
you know.
so when I was in BB, the kind of Bible studies that you were preparing for this exam was really kind of fun, and it was a competition.
Yeah.
And I feel schools sort of made exams like a kind of competition, a kind of competitive.
I mean, the
spirit.
reason was
we would
it
do so
was
much
a
better.
competition. You know, it's like you
Yeah.
want to try and get
Like,
the shield, or at least not humiliate yourself.
I wanted my name on a shield, so I just did my homework and I learned, and I came second. And I was like, wow, you know. But then in the other place, I don't get any reward at all. It's only you gotta know your Bible. You're not a good Christian.
They're kind of poking you with a stick instead of showing you a treat kind of thing.
Exactly. And as a child, it's very hard to grasp that. If I did my catechism well, I would get a well done, and maybe very rarely a wee Haribo. You know. And then when I did that Psalms
what are you
course,
complaining about then, Ben?
what
are you? That's all you need.
Oh, I know. But anyway, the course that I did when I was a teenager, so I was left sort of Sunday school, and it was more like a young adults thing, and it was about Psalms, and they were explaining why RPs only sing Psalms. And they were like, well, because the book of Psalms is titled the Psalms, but inside the book of Psalms, there are psalms, hymns, and worship songs, which then correlates to that verse I was talking about in Corinthians, where you sing only spiritual songs, worship songs, and hymns and stuff like that. So then the minister was like, that's why we don't sing anything else, because we only want to sing from what is God's word, what God has spoken, you know? So anything else is kind of beneath that.
Okay.
And I find it hard to understand that, because worship to me in Glen Abbey is to reflect what heaven would possibly be like. It's to be a little slice of heaven. You know, us all singing our hearts out. You've got people raising their hands in praise. You would never catch that in a Presbyterian, or like you wouldn't catch people raising their hands up and closing their eyes and swaying side to side in your church, would you, Josh? Otherwise everyone will look at them and be like, they're clearly possessed. You know, there's this alien understanding of each of these
it's not
denominations.
part of the culture, really.
Exactly, and that's a big thing about it, you know. And also, it's this kind of idea that you get outcasted for it as well.
I think,
Did you see Barbara? She had her eyes closed when she was singing. Ooh.
I'll let you speak, but I just want to make one point. When I went to Green Pastures, it was times so I could. There were 3 services in Green Pastures in the morning. It was time so I could go to my normal one.
Okay.
In Brookside, and then go to that one, but not enough time to get changed. No, so I showed up at Green Pastures, right? Everyone's in like jogging bombs and stuff. I'm in like a full
suit.
I was literally I'm in a full suit.
When I went to Green Pastures, I made that mistake.
There's do you know Pastor John?
No.
He's an American pastor. He does like a wee.
Is he at Green Pastures?
No, he's an American. He's in
America. In actual America. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Sorry.
No, he's. Is he a Calvinist? I don't know. No,
Wait, like John Piper?
No, John.
Oh,
yeah,
no, he's not.
Yeah, John Piper, I think. Yeah.
You listen to John Piper?
It's John Piper.
Like Desiring God.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's John Piper. Do you know I actually went to? So sorry, I know you were talking, but.
I just said Pastor John, didn't say second.
Because it's like Ask Pastor John is like the thing.
To,
So he is I did like mission trip, like not mission trips, but I did like mission in my town, and the church that his church, Bethlehem Baptist, partnered with my church at home.
Oh, wow.
And I went to a wedding of one of the people that did that with us, and John Piper was sitting behind me.
There you go.
And I was like, Mom, John Piper's sitting behind us, don't look. And she
Get
was
an
like,
autograph.
John Piper? Where? Where's John Piper? And I was
Ask
like, Mom.
Pastor John for an autograph.
Yeah.
So one of his Ask Pastor John wee clips, he was like, what should I wear to church? And he says, you should dress to kill, but you should not dress to kill those who kill. I murdered everyone there in cold blood.
There you are.
But yeah, so even my friend who was with me was like, "Do you feel okay if I put my hand up?" I'm like, "You do, man." Like that's like there's such a
Hidden understanding. Of the rules.
There's such a. She must have got a well. I was going to sit and die, like, but she must have got like some sort of
vibe.
Yeah.
Oh, he's from this culture. Maybe I should. But
which is nice that she was like respectful enough to ask.
Yeah.
But I also think like that, like church should be a place where you feel free to worship in like obviously a reverent way, but also just like
keyword
in like your response. You shouldn't, if you feel like you like people who raise their hands in worship, most people, it's like an act of like I like surrender to God, and like it is like an act of reverence to be
come,
like
Holy Spirit, come.
Yeah, like you're so much holier and better and worthier than I.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So I think there should be freedom to do that within church, I think.
Well, in my transition from Trinity to Glen Abbey, I would go to Glen Abbey's early service and then immediately after go to Trinity. And I had the exact contrast. I could see firsthand because I was fresh out of a sermon and going straight into another one, and I just could see the contrast. And there are some people in the RPs who will not sing in other churches. They will not open their mouths. Or
at least the leaders.
They will not open their mouths to sing anything other than the Psalms.
Okay.
And I find that very interesting because it's like, well, do you think that none of these people are worshipping? You know, do you think they're sinning? Is this a sin to you?
Is it a sin? Yeah.
And I find that very interesting. So we've been talking as Christians about how we live as Christians inside churches and other churches. I'm interested now if I can move the conversation along to.
Before we move on, can I make a comment on the whole worship stuff between different denominations and cultures? Again, back to when I was saying it's so complicated and
intricate,
twisty, and it's so hard to point at something and say this is the issue. If we change this, is if only RPs sang more than sounds, the world would be saved. It's like there's something not quite right about that statement.
No,
they've obviously got good reasons for, like, if you speak to an RP, he takes their tradition seriously, right? Right, I was in a debate conversation about this with Ocean. I told you about this. He's our RP mate,
and he's very well versed in his stuff. Like, he does know his stuff, and I'm very proud of him.
Just because I think I just found out after speaking to, like, I think Kelsey, another RP friend of ours, and I found out from him they only sang hymn or Psalms
from the Book of Psalms.
Book of Psalms. I was like, okay, that's interesting. That was just in the back of my head. Then I just read my Bible and I just stumbled across one of the key verses. Just as I wasn't looking out for it, but I stumbled upon one of the key verses that like sparked this whole debate. I'm like, so I basically did what everyone else did years and years back when I just found it naturally. So I was like, so Kelsey, can you explain this?
Yeah.
He was like, where'd you get that from? Then he put me into contact with Ocean, he's thought about it more on a doctoral level, but he's got good reasons, and I'm not saying
excellent reasons, I would say.
Yes, and I'd say they also make him be able to partake in his faith more. Yes. Because he has this reverence.
He is not only just a feeling.
He puts more value into the words he says. He's got a reason behind what he does.
Yeah.
And again, like there's a difference between that and just getting, oh well, it's not what I do. It must be wrong. Yeah. Okay, and we need to find where exactly is the point. Okay, I don't think it is just an easily defined line.
Yeah.
I'll lay out a case here. Okay, so I was listening to a few podcasts about like Orthodox Christianity in Ethiopia. Okay, don't ask me how. Okay,
it's niche.
In Ethiopia,
a very niche
so
bracket, but okay.
They don't have any of our materialist nonsense in the West, okay, which is why I love it. But anyway, so they're very open about spiritual things. Anyway, so if you're there's a person who liked playing the drums. They're like me. I play the drums as a hobby. He liked playing the drums. Okay, and in part of this sort of worship, his tradition of worship, it was like there are levels of, there's like a hierarchy of sort of purity or spirituality between music, and it's not like playing the drums was wrong. It just it had its place.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So he liked playing his drums, but he got to the stage, he was like a priest kind of guy, or he was like a higher up kind of teacher, leader, spiritual kind of guy, and because of the position he held, he wasn't allowed to, because of the tradition and the rituals behind it, it wouldn't have made sense, and he wasn't allowed to play the drums as part of the service.
Okay.
Because of what he represented. And it's this idea that everything has its place.
Yeah.
I'm not saying when green pastures get their electric bass guitar out and he's like, yeah, he's just yeah, then everyone's like screaming, it's and they've got their drum box. You got that in green pasture, the drum boxes, like, you know, the plexiglass, and then it's like super loud, or just any standard non-denominational church, right? There's that, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
there's people who sing only like RPs. They only do. There's no instrumental accompanying.
There's no instruments.
There's just the human voice, and that's like a very
great,
that's a very pure. The human voice is the most pure or spiritual of all
instruments,
of all the noises, right? And there's like a hierarchy. Everything has its place, and like if you go into a monastery, okay, of some random place in the middle of nowhere, untouched place, monastery, and people who just go there, and they're people who've taken on the monastic tradition, they've signed up to a life of poverty, okay, and you have these people who just pray all the time. I don't think a distorted electric guitar is good music to play there, right?
That's not where it.
But I'm not saying it can't be used to glorify God.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm
do all
laying?
things to the glory of God.
Do you understand what I'm laying forth here? It's
Yeah.
not like there's a bad.
It's just about
Bad
having
in
wisdom.
them.
Yeah.
They're not bad in
understand that.
themselves. It's just, where do you place that?
No, I understand that, because in primary school, when I first went to Green Pastures, it was like all the kids come up to the front, and I was like, okay, the children's talk. But then it was like, okay, guys, we're going to dance. And I was like, huh?
Dancing in church.
Dance? And then the drums went, the lights, strobe effect, and all these little kids were dancing, and it was like, Jesus is my superhero. And I was just like, how dare this heresy? And I just went back. I went straight back up. I was like, Mum was miles away. I went straight back up to Mum, and I was like, Mother, I will not partake. And they were like, no, Ben, it's okay. Go to the children's, see how it is. And I went to the children's thing, and then there was just like, okay, guys, so we're going to do a little bit of Bible study, and then afterwards we're going to let you get play in the play area. And I was like, heresy! What do you mean there's a play area in here? This Church of God! So I was just like, I want to go back to the sermon. And I went back to the sermon, and I just sat, because I was brought up to sit down and listen to like a 1.5 hour sermon at
Wow.
8, 9 years old. That's what I did. It's boom, what I did. That's why I like drawing and writing and stuff, because I would do that. That's my upbringing. And it's this transitional understanding of, like you said, the keyword reverence. There has to be a kind of level of reverence and respect, and understanding that this is a very real God.
Yeah, like worship isn't all just about having like fun.
Yeah, well,
Like-
obviously, yeah.
It's about like actually coming before God and like experiencing His presence and like responding to that.
One of my elders, he's a very famous quote from him. He says, every day human beings are looking for something to worship. We automatically will worship things. All right. For example, the new Halo came out, and I worship it on holy amounts because it's Halo. It's my favorite game. But then also, like, you know, people just worship things all the time in terms of television, in terms of music, in terms of everyday life. There's people want to give a part of themselves to a transcendental part of themselves into something that they feel will, in a way, give back to them. And worship for Christians is like that, and we must give that part of our souls to God. That's what it is to be a Christian, to give a part of ourselves to Him, because He took a part of Himself and died for us. He gave a part of Him to us, so the least we could do is give a bit back. every day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I want to do as a Christian. That's what most Christians who call themselves Christians will want to do, want to practice every single day. And I feel that if you're doing that, if you're really of the understanding that you're giving a part of your very soul to God in the things that you're doing, I can't say that you're wrong. I can't point to you and say, well, I don't think God will like you doing that, because I 100% know God will love you doing that. I 100% know God would want you to, wants a piece of your soul. And it's like, look, you're well done, good and faithful servant, you know. And I think that's where you're saying, where's the line? I think that's the line I won't cross. I'm never going to look at someone and say, well, I mean, I could look at the entirety of a church. I'm bullying Green Pastures a bit, but I will look at the entirety of that, and if I see any more dancing, I'm just going to be like, I don't agree with this. That's me, because I've been brought up to do that, and they're not going to agree with the things that I do. And I understand that, but I don't think it's in everybody's place to point to them and say, this is a sin.
This is wrong.
This is wrong. If a Christian is really saying, well, this is a part of my soul and I'm giving it to my Heavenly Father who loves me and cares for me and died for me, I can't say anything to that. I can't say, well, really?
Yeah.
Because that's not me sounding like a Christian anymore. That's not me supporting them or building them up or outdoing them in grace, as it says in Timothy, is it? I'm doing the opposite. I'm acting like not a Christian. I'm like, well, really? Ooh, why are you doing this? Seems a bit gobbledygook to me.
I'm glad we're on this sort of general topic, because I'm very fascinated and interested with, like, I want Christians to be united from all around the world, no matter what specific
denominations,
you know, version of Christian you are. There has to be this sort of unity. I mean, even just in the past, say the coronavirus, right? That thing you just told me about that I didn't hear about beforehand, right? It was happening before this, but coronavirus just accelerated everything. Okay, I just said there's this sort of breakdown in unity. You can't really act out your faith as easy in the church body, at least in these experiences we've had, right? And there's a lack of emphasis on the community and communion, like fellowship with each other, and like real
Faith
having chats like this. It wouldn't happen. Not really.
Especially
really
in COVID as well, where people are just saying, right, go straight home.
But anyway, so that was before COVID, but then COVID happened, right? And then
worse.
there was such a lack of this human interaction community. It was like there was no fight, but
yeah, it's to the point where people feared human interaction.
It's just like, all right,
it was just
the government says this, so we'll just follow because it's our Christian duty to, you know, do that. And I understand what they're saying, but it's like, there's such a they don't see the overarching pattern and what they're protecting, and if they saw that, they would realize if they saw the fullness of that, or at least more. Like, I talk about symbolism all the time, right? It fascinates me. Okay?
My head.
It's like it's the language of meaning. Okay, it's like if you understand these patterns, you can start living in those patterns. Most people don't understand the world from a meaning perspective. They see it as like all right, what am I doing today, next week? That's about it, kind of thing. How does it fit together on like such a low down level? It's not like, no one usually thinks of what is the story of my life. How does this partake in that? You know. No one thinks that, and they definitely don't think what's the story of my community or my country or the world. They don't think that, right? But if you do think in those terms, it's such a burden on your soul to see these things happen. Anyway, so there's such a lack of emphasis put on all this stuff, so it was just poof, it's gone, right? And do you know what people realized? Oh, hold on a minute, this is no different. We're meeting at church now. Well, this is back when we were meeting at church now, but back when it was all nothing. It was just online. It's like, oh, I feel no different.
Yeah.
I just showed up to church every week and made idle chat and
then went home
and exchanged pleasantries, and the only thing that's different is the commute.
Social club.
There's no commute anymore. That's the only difference, right?
Yeah.
And that's the communion with the church should not be as easily
taken away
like that without
not without even a discussion, let alone a fight.
Well, no, I know. I mean, like, it shouldn't. No, I'm not saying like the process, but I'm saying if that's just taken away, you shouldn't be able to be like, oh, I didn't realize.
Yeah,
It should have been like such a massive part.
Should have been an impact.
Continue what you're saying.
Yeah, well, I think that was one thing for me. Like in village, I think if I hadn't been going there, there's such like they're. So every year they do this sermon series called Family Traits, just to remind the church of like the sort of mission or vision statement of village, and they do a sermon series on gospel, community, and mission. And what I love about village is like I really do feel like I'm part of a community. Like I feel like I am doing life like side by side with the people that I'm in church with. That was like one thing whenever I left home, sorry. In 2019, I did Livewire, New Horizon Livewire, after my first year of uni, and I was a leader, and the theme was church, and I learned so much that week about like what it means to be part of your local church. And I remember chatting to this man, Pete Wright, legend, and he was a Presbyterian minister, I believe, or a youth worker actually. He was a youth worker. Anyway, he was in the Presbyterian church, and I was in the Presbyterian church, but like in making my way, like transitioning out of it. And he had said like, it's okay to like not go to a Presbyterian church when you move to Belfast. Like you need to go somewhere where that's local, and that is preaching the gospel and is mission focused. Like those are like the main things. So when I found village, I was like, whoa, this feels like a family. Like I straight off the bat, I was like, I'm so welcome, etc. So whenever pandemic happened, I did feel like that was completely like taken away, like that whole community aspect. And like we still tried to meet. We had like a weekly meeting on a Wednesday night, like a small group meeting, and we still did that on Zoom and stuff, but it felt so different because now like I came straight from my church friend's house this afternoon. Like we had a prayer breakfast this morning, and then I went to their house for lunch. And like I'm going back to their house this evening to play Catan.
Woo!
I know, I'm so excited. I only played Catan once, but I won, so I'm addicted.
There's a million board games,
Yeah.
I'm addicted to them.
I love that. So like I really do feel like I'm part of a community, but I know what you mean. Like if you don't have that in your church, like then there's a problem.
Yeah.
And that needs to be addressed, because first and foremost we're called to live in community with each other, and
Yeah.
that's what the church should look like.
My issue is just what you were saying, Josh, is that we have the freedom to talk and debate as Christians, and I love that. As we know, I love arguing, and I love debate, and I love conversation. I love demonstrating my ideas, and I love listening to other people's understandings and ideas. But it's when that is so easily pushed aside, in terms of don't do that anymore, stay at home with your families for months, and it's so easily handed over, this fellowship. I suffered so greatly. Like I wasn't in whenever COVID happened. I didn't go to church for like 6 months until I went to Oxford.
Oh wow.
And I just hadn't this, because I could watch it on TV. It just wasn't the same to me. And I met up with a guy who invited me to a youth praise, and I was in tears because I hadn't been so long, and it was just praise. It was just songs. There was no talk. It was just prayer and praise, and we were just praising. There's all a bunch of people my age, and I was broken. I was just like, this is what I've been missing. This is the one part of me that I couldn't worship. I can't worship without people. I can't worship without fellow Christians. Even though I know Christ is with me now in all ways, I still need to worship Him, and I can't do that in front of a TV screen. There's this thing now with COVID passes are now a thing.
Yeah.
That are going to be implemented.
Raging.
Where you need to show a pass going anywhere into hospitality, and if you don't have one, you're not allowed to be sat down and served.
Is that passed?
I don't know, it's being talked about, but what if that happens and then it spreads to churches? You need a passport to get into churches.
This is revealing the very dark side of me. Like, you know, if you're familiar with the Jungian shadow, okay, this is revealing my dark side, right?
Ooh.
There's part of me that wants that, because I know it's going to make the world burn, and I kind of want to see the story play out. But then there's others.
Psychopath.
No, then there's the other side of me where it's like I want to do everything in my part to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
because I can see what could happen if that happens.
It's because
but other people don't see, and I want them to see that that's what my dark side is. Enough of, I just want them to see.
well, you know what it is.
Does that make sense?
All Christians, and I find this a lot. All Christians yearn for justice,
Mm.
but also all Christians yearn for justice and judgment, but also fellowship and freedom.
Yeah.
You know, that's the two things in terms of the good and the dark, the light side of Christians and the less bright but still good side of the faith is there's going to be justice and punishment for all, Christians included, in terms of giving an account, and you know, the reward being, does the reward fit the bill and stuff like that. But then we also have this understanding as Christians that we want to be superheroes and save the world and save people and invite them into, and get one day see them in heaven. You know, like, I would agree with you in terms of, yes, there needs to be a hard rocking of the church. There needs to be a hard, you know, understanding that, look, this is taken away so easily. What are you going to do to fight for it? But then we also have the other side where it's like, let's try and prevent this from happening. Let's try and keep what we have now, because we can't afford to see that any worse.
The Christian story is death and rebirth. I do
Over and
believe
over
the
and
church
over and over.
has to die for the next revival to happen. I believe that, and I don't think we can avoid it.
Yeah, like the church I grew up in, like, I just feel like it's been dying for a long time, and like there's not much happening that's like reviving it. So I feel like it's like at that stage where it needs, you know when everyone's like, it gets worse before it gets better, like it needs to hit rock bottom for something to like click and things to change. So, which is really hard to watch and see. And like my family still go to that church, and like my dad's an elder there, and my mum and dad have like a real passion to see the church revived. But like it's hard when there's two people in a congregation of like a few hundred.
Yeah.
You know, obviously they're not the only two, but like,
I like to
it's hard.
remember that the Lord is present, even in the caves and the caverns of the world, as well as the heavens.
Yeah.
You know, and when you apply that to churches, when you apply that to the people, the individual people in the churches,
Yeah.
like people who have secret sins that nobody knows about, that the Lord knows about.
Which
That's
is
why it says
everyone.
all vengeance is the Lord's. You know, all justice is the Lord's, because we're all sinners, so we can't therefore judge. We need to have somebody who isn't part of it, who is the judge. And I find rest and relief in that. You know, no matter how dark things get, I know that the Lord of Light is still in control. But do you think we need to wrap up now?
No, it's fine. We're having a
No?
conversation.
We're good.
I probably need to go soonish. but-
Okay.
That's what I say.
We'll say a few more things, then
Yeah.
you can
No,
abruptly leave without
head out.
saying.
I brought cookies, so it's okay.
Ben, I tell you all the time that the world's upside down, right?
Yeah.
Okay. No, if you, another way of looking at that is you're bringing the margins or the fringes or the strangers and replacing the center with it. Right?
Yeah.
You can see. Do you understand what I mean by that?
Like,
We are replacing the center, the thing which we are
Yeah.
defined by, with the outsider, the
Yeah.
outside things, the things that aren't definable. Okay. I mean, just look at our political landscape as one manifestation of that. Okay, or just look at anything, you'll see it anywhere, right? Now, what that also allows, it means the margin is now where the source of the next revolution would be, or the next flip, or the next rebirth. Okay, so if you see, like if you take away, if you think about Robin Hood, if you take away the king, the good king, okay, where does the person come from who put things back in place? It's this twisty character on the edges of things. That would be Robin Hood. Does that make sense? And one manifestation of that is like the most fellowship, like Christian fellowship I've had with people, or maybe not even necessarily Christian, but in that sort of spiritual / Christian fellowship I had with people, they'd be in most like random places, not usually not churches or any of these established buildings, but like I was in London for 2 trips doing charity work, okay, for like construction based charity work, okay, and And the first time it was just us in this small cramped area, a few guys, right? We knew how to build stuff, most of us, you know, we just want to help out. And we were in outside foreign territory, right? London, for goodness sake. I don't live in London, right? Where everything's foreign. But that, there were like small pockets you're allowed to be brought together in that. And the second time I went, you know, we were involved with like the local communities even briefly, right? I ended up in some random person's house, and some like your brother who was like, "Hey Josh, I know a few guys who's doing this thing now. Is the second time it's happening. Do you want to come along?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And yeah, that's where I met Jason from. Just a group of Christians who decided to just get together randomly.
Yeah.
It's not like, and it's not even a part of any church kind of thing. And I think this is where it's. I think that's going to play a part in wherever the next step is. I don't know what the next step is. I just want everything to come back together.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. But I don't want.
I think community needs to be at the center of that, and like
yes, and
life on life,
faith and fellowship.
We're saying like all these old things are sort of dying off a wee bit, but the story isn't just we'll leave them for dead. The story is we have to revitalize our own communities. Like my church, Brookside, as flawed as it is, like I can't just abandon it. You know?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, I get what you mean. I think God definitely will use you in that, and like he's placed you there for a reason, and like you clearly have a passion to see like revival in your church. So that's cool that you like see the flaws and are like, I still want to stick by this, because a lot like culture, a lot of like youth Christian culture is like, especially students, like they'll church hop, like they'll go to church, and as soon as there's like I know these two people, and like as soon as there's something they don't really like at church, then they just go to a different one. Yeah. And I'm like, you're never gonna get you're never gonna find a perfect church, and two, you're never gonna get stuck into a community. Yeah. Really, if you like keep moving from church to church. Obviously, if there's like big red flags and like really church. Bad theology. Like, yeah, don't like go, like Mormons. Leave. Like it's real dodgy. But like if your problem is like, oh, I felt like, I don't know, like nobody really talked to me. I'm like, I know that like it's not like, especially if you've been going for a while, I find that most churches I go to, like there's always someone chats to me if I've never been there before. But if you've been going for a while, like there's a point where like it shifts, and it's like you've been there for long enough that like now you have to get stuck into like you need to being a part of the community rather than expecting people to come to you all the time. That's like one thing that I find people are like, oh, I don't think that church is very welcoming, and I'm like, well, you maybe went for like a few months, and eventually it's not like you're the new person anymore. Like you need to start developing those relationships for yourself. I don't know, but yeah, I think it's cool that you're like choosing to stay with that church, even though it's not perfect, because you're never going to find a perfect church. So
well, that's the difference between, I'd say, you and I, Josh. You won't abandon a thing that's very close to you, and I wanted the kind of relationship that Josh has with his church, but no matter how much I tried, it just seemed like people didn't want me rather than I wanted it, and that's how the break happens. So it's not only Josh has this ability to sense a unity with his church, and I wants to fix it, but he also wants it to see it tested and understood, whereas I wanted so badly to be a part of a church community that loved and cared for me, but they never wanted to in the first place, just because of who I was. So therefore then you know, but
like to your point, Lauren, like the church is supposed to be your family, not your friends necessarily. Happy days if you're friends with them, but like the difference between friends and family is that you can't just leave your family. You have to deal with the flaws. Yeah. You know, if you marry a husband or wife, you know, it's
you love them.
You're stuck with them. Yeah. You're shackled to them. You can't. There's no running away. It's supposed to be the vows anyway, right? There's no running away from this. Okay, we need to either suffer together and die together, or we're gonna fix these issues. I think that's what we need more of that kind of
Yeah, that
vibe.
mindset.
But I mean, are you needing to go now?
Yeah, probably.
Is there any closing
So-
words you wish to say?
I just
any of
want to
you?
just to finish this up. What I said earlier about genuinely, if somebody is doing something and it's a genuine piece of their soul they're giving to God in terms of worship, we can't say they're wrong. We can't say, unless it's like child sacrifice or something.
Yeah.
You know, like,
But like with dancing, like it's
within
biblical.
the reason of
Yeah.
the
It's,
10 commandments.
don't be quick to point fingers, is what you're
yeah.
suggesting.
Take a moment to understand.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Lauren, for coming on. Really appreciate that.
Thanks
You're the
for
first
having me.
female on the
Am
podcast.
I?
You are.
Whoa.
And
That's exciting.
we thought it was very good. Very, very,
Yeah.
very fruitful conversation. Like I said, it's just a conversation.
Yeah.
And to our listeners, thank you very much for listening. I really, really appreciate that.
Check out Agapé if you are a
Yes.
student in North. There, you have multiple.
Yeah, so there's Agapé Students BFS is our Instagram if you're from Belfast, but there's
Yeah.
also Agapé Students UK, which is like mainland UK.
Yeah.
There's like a bunch of stuff, or like there's Agapé Ireland down south. So
Yeah.
wherever you're listening from, there'll be an Agapé.
And there's
or-
one in Ulster as well.
Yeah.
Isn't there, as
No,
well?
actually,
No?
there's not. It's just in Belfast.
Screw those guys.
This one's quite like fresh and new. So
Okay. Yeah. Well, how
Yeah.
long have you been doing it? Like, how long is this?
It's
Agapé?
been Campus Crusade for Christ has been in Northern Ireland for years and years and years,
Yeah.
but this like movement of Agapé students has been around for like, I'm gonna say 7 to 10 years, but like pandemic, like because it's like not as big as like CU and stuff,
Yeah.
the pandemic kind of like meant we had to like start from scratch again
Yeah.
because all the students that were
Yeah.
kind of
Because you're not big
graduating
enough
and
to be an
stuff.
established society. There.
Yeah,
is that?
no, not yet. So
Well, definitely check that out.
Yes, do.
Thank you so much for listening. Comment, like, and share, and we will catch you on the next episode.
mhm.
Bye bye.
Goodbye.